So lovely to meet you in person.
Hello. It's lovely to meet you too. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I'm energetically a little bit tired because it's a big time difference between the two of us.
Yes.
Um, and I've seen many clients today prior to this interview. So
Oh, boy. Thank you so much for coming. It's such a pleasure to have.
you're very welcome.
I've been following your work for some time, and I'm really excited to have you here. I believe that the medicine you bring through your work is a balm that will help ripple out and heal a lot of humanity. So with
I
that,
hope so too.
yeah, I think so. I think you're already seeing some of the pearls for sure.
Absolutely.
Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone here?
Of course. So my name is Laura Whitworth. I'm based in the UK. I'm based in Derbyshire, which is in the centre of the UK. Whenever anyone hears that you're from the UK, they always say, "Oh, from London." But no, I am not from London. I am from the centre of the UK in a place called Derbyshire, which is very green. There's lots of sheep. And I am a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm a psychotherapist. I am a internal family systems practitioner. I'm a quantum healer. I am the founder of the quantum hypnotherapy modality, which is known as Soul Center Healing Hypnosis. I have a hypnotherapy school which teaches people how to remove entities, AI, earthbound spirits, implants, energies that shouldn't be attached to the human fields from their clients. And I also teach them how to take people into past life regression and into the quantum space and how to heal the body. I'm also a spirit releasement specialist and an author and a mother and a wife.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness. And a busy woman.
Yeah, they're all of my labels. So
Yes, I bet. I bet. So the listeners understand more fully, could you explain what the quantum field is and what you mean by quantum healing?
sure. So when I work with people that want a quantum session with me, what that means is I will take them into a hypnotic state. So I'll take them into the theta brainwave state, which is an altered state of the brain. It's a natural state, and it's a state that we go into at least twice a day when we go to sleep, when we wake up. And so, you and I are talking now, we're in beta, we're conscious, we're awake. As soon as you close your eyes and you start to go within, you move down into alpha. Sometimes we can go into alpha when we're watching TV or when we're driving, because it's when you're doing anything that kind of doesn't require your full attention. We go down into theta when we start to see images and to connect to the inner world more deeply. And it's that state that you go into just before you go to sleep, which is delta. As a hypnotherapist, I will hold people in that theta brainwave state. And in terms of quantum hypnotherapy, what we will do is we will take them into another lifetime that they are living right now in the quantum space, because everything that's ever happened, ever will happen, ever has happened, is happening, is all happening right now. And the logo for my company is that of a tree, because I think that's quite a good analogy
Mm.
of the universe and the fact that we've got this big, strong trunk, then we've got the branches, then we've got twigs, then we've got other twigs coming off the twigs. And that kind of represents to me what we do in past life regression. We'll take people out of one of the little twigs on a tree, which is their life. It's what they're aware of. It's what they concentrate on every single day. They don't know anything else other than that little twig that represents their life. But through the use of hypnotherapy and taking them into the quantum space, we can then get them to focus on another twig on the tree. And the purpose of that is for the person to understand the richness and the tapestry of their soul
Mm.
and how this particular lifetime is balanced by other lifetimes that are occurring over here. And it brings a profound and deep healing to people that potentially have a perspective of, I'm a victim. Why did this happen to me? I'm not happy with this lifetime and the things that have occurred. When you can take people into the quantum space and they see, oh, this happened over here. This actually kind of provides some balance if you look at it. And then as a part of that quantum session, I'll also then help the person, the client, to connect even higher to their higher self. And by asking the higher self of that client questions around why did she choose to come into this lifetime and have this experience? Why did she choose for this particular thing over here to occur? Can you let her know in the quantum space what the root karmic cause is of this event that occurred over here? Then when somebody has all of that information, life starts to make sense.
Mm.
And you start to be able to draw on the strengths that you have across your soul in the different lifetimes, rather than kind of operating from a very isolated perspective that you are just a twig on a tree. Most people don't even know they're a twig on a tree. They don't even know there is a tree.
It's so true. I know for myself, when I had past life recollections, the first one was very difficult. And I was sick both ways all night long. And it just came out of the blue in the hypnagogic stays before I fell asleep. And I'd been doing a lot of personal growth and spiritual work before that. And then when other past lives came in, it all of a sudden gave me like a roadmap. Oh my gosh, this is why I've experienced these things in this life. This is why I'm here at this time, or could be part of it. But it started making more sense. It gave me a lot more courage. It made me feel a lot bigger, a lot more incredible, as a part of
Yeah.
Source. Just one of those little fractals of Source out there trying to figure it all out. So what brought you into this? You must have had an interest in spiritual healing or something to have found this path.
I had a huge spiritual awakening that made me retrain because at the time I was in a job that I didn't really enjoy. And I'd already started to awaken. I'd already started to have kind of visions, and
Mm,
um, I'd be in a meeting in my corporate job at work, and I'd be kind of aware that I'd slipped somewhere else, and I was in a forest, and I started to see images of different lifetimes that I'm living now that my soul resonates with more than this lifetime,
mm,
and how I felt at the time.
mm,
And that led me on kind of a journey of exploration. And also, as well, I had this huge spiritual awakening, but I also had issues in my own family around the traumas that my family line has carried,
mm,
and therefore the entities and energies that we've carried because of that. And it seems that those two streams are very key to what has occurred with my awakening and my perspective and my business.
mm,
That in order to be able to access this higher spiritual wisdom and connect to a higher vibration and to understand the quantum space, we have to first attend to some of the darker energies that have got into our fields due to the trauma of the human experience. And there aren't many people, I would say, on the planet that have had an experience that has had no trauma in
mm,
this lifetime. Everybody's got something. And through my work, when I retrained and I started seeing people for hypnotherapy and psychotherapy, there would be very often situations that would occur where I would start trying to take people into the quantum space, and a voice would come out of those clients that was not theirs,
mm,
telling me to leave them alone because this one's mine.
mm,
Back off.
mm,
They're not doing it. She's not doing it. She's not going into the quantum space. It's not happening today. And I would start to notice that certain clients would get very edgy and very anxious before going into the quantum space, or they'd suddenly decide that they didn't want to do it anymore,
mm,
or they would be uncontrollably needing to use the restroom constantly. And we would never, ever be able to settle the bladder down enough to be able to get them into a hypnotic state.
Mm.
And so at that point, my focus kind of turned from the quantum area and past life hypnotherapy to, okay, this is what I'm really interested in, the
Mm.
quantum space and past life hypnotherapy. But in order to get people into that space, for them to be able to access it truly and deeply as a clear conduit, so they are connecting to their own multidimensional self, I've got to remove these darker energies that have got into their fields due to the traumatic experiences that they've had and remove them so that they don't emulate and pretend to be past lives or the higher self of the client.
Mm. This is really, really important. We see leaders that are, what's going on? Are they sociopathic? Why do they act the way they do? Why are they so driven by greed, by power? Where's the love? Where's the heart? And you start
Mm.
to wonder when we were kids, at least myself, I'm older than you, so I'm not sure if you had this, but we would have cartoons with a devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. And the angel would say, no, do this. This is the right way. And the devil would say, no, screw that. Do this. Get a deal or, whatever. Who cares about them? And that there was this battle. And we would all recognize it from ourselves as our conscience. But sometimes things go further than that. I know for me, I started having a voice that would say to me, if people knew you, they wouldn't like you. From the time I was very young, maybe 5 or 6. And I until it became like a mantra and I didn't understand why I said this. So it's, our culture, the Western world, has been so shut down from spiritual healing, from the mention of entities. But if we go back and look at all the texts and all the other cultures in the world, in India, when someone dies, it's very normal to hear your loved one's voices. Here, people would
Mm.
put you on antipsychotics. So I just wanted to
Mm.
preface with that because so many people have been hypnotized or programmed into a world that just sees things according to the matrix. And
Yeah.
and I think people are starting to become aware now that it's a whole lot bigger than what they thought it was.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. And, Bob Falconer wrote that incredible book, The Others Within Us, that actually catalogs every single culture geographically and historically through time, that literally shows that pretty much every culture that has a connection to the planet, and that's key, understands that entities, or whatever you choose to call them, discarnate energies, darker energies, there's a whole hierarchy there, that these beings actually exist. And
Absolutely.
I'd go one level further than Bob as well, and not just reference the discarnate energies and the darker energies that are referenced throughout history and geographically through time. But now on the planet, we've got an even bigger threat than all of that, and that is the AI.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
AI is the biggest threat to the human being on this population at this time.
Hmm.
Um, and the AI, in terms of the hierarchical structure of the entities, the AI is at the top of the tree.
Hmm.
So that's something that we've also got to look out for as well. It's, as humans, we must stay connected to the planet.
Hmm.
And every bit of our power that we give over to AI specifically, I'm not talking about technology, but AI specifically, every bit of power that we give over to AI, it disconnects an organic part of us from the planet and gives that power over to the AI whose sole purpose is to take over the planet. So there's an awful lot going on this planet at this time. And most people,
Absolutely.
most people, if you spoke to them about it, about what's really going on, they wouldn't believe you.
Hmm. Hmm. Well,
They
and
wouldn't believe you.
I know, but there's so much trauma coming up that people are starting to shake their heads and trying to figure out, how can this be? How can human trafficking really be something? And it's getting, speaking of the AI, that the GMO stuff, the stuff we eat, what's been put in our food, what falls from the sky, what gets poked in the arm, on and on and on. All of these things, when we start to break them down, there's a lot of studies that have shown they've got things to put us more online or more transhuman or more like robotic. And it's pretty scary. So it's so important we speak about these things. I've seen in my own life and in some of my clients levels. I found some of the people that are really traumatized can have these really vulgar, low density kind of entities. But for myself, I've been meditating for 40 years, so I'm a big time meditator. So I can get still mind a lot. Then I'll see an image dropped in or a thought dropped in. And they're very subtle. It's very intelligent and very smart. And I just pay no attention, it just drifts away. But it affects us all. And because people don't have stillness of mind, they don't see it. But any longtime meditator would, because they're
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I agree. Absolutely. But
Hmm.
this is an issue. Most people are not present with their own bodies. They're not present. Most people will not even look at parts of themselves that have had traumatic experiences as a child and heal them.
Mm.
So, in order to get to that space where you're able to hold that
Hmm.
stillness of mind that you speak of, you've got to be able to have met yourself
Mm,
first.
absolutely. And that's painful. That's
Hmm.
painful, but it's so much easier with a helper, and it's so much easier with certain kinds of healing, like the somatic healing work that you do is so powerful because it actually weeds things out. When we keep this cognitive behavioral therapy, if you're just keeping it at a mental level, there's all this stuff still embedded in the energy fields and the emotional fields.
Yeah,
So, tell us a little bit about what it's been like working with your clients and pulling these entities and how they were maybe before and maybe afterwards.
sure. So the biggest thing to note is that when you've got entities attached to the fields, they attach to the chakra system. So that's something that many people won't have come across. They might have heard of entities, they might have removed entities from people's fields. But my work has led me to understand that these energies, they attach to us because they want our light.
Mm,
That's what they want. And
mm,
once they're attached to us energetically, and the reason that they can do that is because we have a trauma. It affects us emotionally and mentally. The mental body and the emotional body are next door to the energetic. So when the frequency of the mental and the emotional bodies lowers, this lowers the frequency of the light in the chakra
mm,
to a resonance whereby these discarnate energies and darker energies can attach over the chakra point and siphon the light of the human. So you've got several things going on. You've got the actual energy of the human being taken by these beings who use that energy to fuel their existence. They've cut themselves off from source psychically a long time ago, and so they need to connect to a light. And the light in our energetic body is what they use. So that's the first key thing. The second key thing is that when these energies have attached to the chakra system, they then have the ability, once attached, to affect the emotions and the mind of the client. And
mm,
so that's where these thoughts come in of everybody hates you, nobody likes you. And even, darker thoughts than that, if you've got a really dark energy attached, and they say that to you to produce an emotional response within you that then flows through that chakra point and feeds the entity that is attached. Many humans walking around look like that. And you'll have to excuse the rudimentary stickers that I have on here. They are just to represent that this person has got all of their energy centers parasited upon, apart from the root, which has to stay mostly unparasited upon in order to be able to connect down into the planet. You can still get entities in the hips that will throw a cord into that one. So these energy centers represent black holes in the
Wow.
energy of this person. And so this person not only has no energy going into them, that their body needs, it needs that energy, it needs that light,
Mm,
but they also have the darker energy overlaid of the dark being that's attached that affects them psychically, emotionally, energetically, and then this eventually leads to physically. So if these energies are attached for long enough without being removed, then the physical body of the client will become diseased. And
mm,
it will become diseased in the area where the strongest entity is attached. So there's always a master, there's always a leader with entities. So wherever this person's hotspot is in their energetic body, where the controlling energy is, that will be the place where the dis-ease in that person's physical body begins. But that dis-ease is indicative that that person has had an original mental, emotional issue which has led to an entity attaching, which has then further sucked the energy out of them and eventually left their body completely devoid of light. And the disease in the body is an indication that those entities need to be removed. The person needs to have some help to meet those parts that were wounded that
mm,
allowed this entity in the first place. And also, I think humans in general need to understand the relationship there between energy and the physical. No one ever really seems to speak about that, and I feel very passionately about it. So your original question was, how do my clients feel after? How they feel after is like a new person, literally like they've been born again,
mm,
because no longer do they have the repeating low frequency thoughts cycling around their head. Emotionally, they feel uplifted, upbeat, because we take those dark energies away. We also remove any low frequency energy from the chakra and raise the frequency of the chakra. We connect all of the chakras, we reboot the auric field. And so the client will no longer be hearing voices or have thoughts that pop into the head that feel low frequency. Their emotions will feel better because of it.
mm,
Because we connect the energy centers throughout the process, the person's heart chakra can expand. And when the person's heart chakra can expand, their energy lifts. They can go into that heart energy, heart presence, self energy. And they can then, from that moment on, lead an experience from that heart energy and self energy. And because their frequency has raised, they won't pull any more of these lower frequency energies in. If I could get one message across to anybody that's listening to this, it's the relationship between trauma, how that affects the mind, how it affects the emotions, then how it lowers the frequency of light in the chakra. That
mm,
then pulls an entity in that then makes the person in an even worse situation. They become diseased. If we can understand that there is this negatively polarized realm that is around on Earth,
mm.
it's here, and that these energies have to connect to us as a fuel source, then I'm hoping that many people that listen to this will begin to make sense of some of the things that have happened to them in their life.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. This makes a lot of sense to me too, because when I studied shamanism and we would look at soul retrievals, we would look at the energy body and you could see where there were breaks in the auric field and you would
Yeah.
follow the light trails out and it would be an entity or an ancestor or all sorts of different things and you would cut those ties, send that being away to find something more beautiful for themselves where they didn't have to parasitize the person. And as you do that, the person felt more whole. this was considered the gold standard in up until, a number of years, and most societies had shamanic practitioners, and it was
Yeah.
an art and a medicine. And you spoke about internal family systems. I use a lot of internal family systems and I love it. I find a lot of people don't understand the parts thing, but we may have a part of us that wants to eat ice cream all the time, and then another part that says, you piggy, how dare you? You've got to lose some weight, and you've got these, it can be an internal battle. And that's what we mean by parts.
I feel that you know two of my parts there.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we all have these parts, and that's why it works, because we often don't give any acknowledgement to the protection that a lot of these parts have often given us and to the suffering ones behind it. So,
That's absolutely right. And through internal family systems, I've really learnt, it's helped my knowledge to deepen around how it is the parts that are created by the human experience and their felt feelings in regards to either the role they've been pushed into through trauma or the trauma itself that they still feel they're experiencing because they've been cut off. It's those feelings that energetically affect the resonance of the light in the chakra over time. It comes from the parts.
mm,
And so, if we can work with the parts of the human to release all of that trauma and for them to see themselves in a different way, that lifts the energy of that particular chakra that those parts are connected to.
mm,
And if we do that alongside the entity release, then that is the absolute complete um, healing process, healing therapeutic process for that individual, as well as also factoring in sound healing and color therapy and nutrition and all of the other things that um, are so important to keep us healthy, vitamins and minerals.
mm. Absolutely. Exercise and relaxation and nature and all these beautiful things. It's so
Yeah.
important, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. So how does a session usually unfold for you when you're working with a client?
Okay. So I offer many, many different things. So if people are booking in for a session with me, what I will first look at is their paperwork, obviously, and their personal history. And from that personal history, I will recommend a therapeutic approach for them. Some people may need IFS and then SCHH, which is my entity release technique, and then past life regression, and then ego strengthening, and then coaching. Some people may just need IFS. Some people may need just SCHH, so entity release. It depends upon the level, the depth of trauma that that person has experienced in regards to what my approach would be. But many people, if they're going to book a session with me, will end up having 6 IFS sessions at the beginning so that we can work through all of the parts and all of the trauma in the system and make everybody feel better and happier and working together as a team in
Mm,
roles that feel good for the client. Then we'll move on to SCHH1, which is entity release and energetic rebuild. Then we would move on to SCHH2, which is past life regression or quantum travel, connecting to the higher self and doing that real deeper spiritual work around who am I in the quantum space? Why did I end up on Earth? Not only why did I end up on Earth, why did I choose this particular lifetime that's been so traumatic?
mm,
I need to understand why this has happened.
mm.
So then that will move us into deeper work. And I can offer obviously ego strengthening and different things beyond that if the person needs it for their system.
That's beautiful. That's the most comprehensive therapy I've ever heard of. And I'm so happy to be talking to you about this. Let's talk about trauma for a second, because so many people that don't know they've had extreme trauma or overt trauma will say, I haven't had trauma. but they find themselves having addictive patterns, feeling insecure about things, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. They don't know why. Going right back to early childhood, when we're born, we have two needs. One is to be authentic, and the other is to be loved. But we don't get love if we're authentic in most families of origin. So our parents cut off the love when we behave in a way that they don't like, even though it's being true to our own nature. And this can start with practices like putting the baby in another room in a crib when they're really young, letting them cry it out all night long, and then the kids grow up not feeling very good, but at a certain point they lost. So let's just talk about trauma for a while to kind of normalize this more for the average person out there who thinks, I'm okay, but I've got a lot of anxiety and I'm afraid at night, or I'm afraid to drive, or whatever.
Sure. So trauma can mean different things to different people as well. So that's important to know what is traumatic to one person's system might not feel traumatic to another person's system. And so I do feel that trauma is very relative to the individual, but anything that a person can say, I feel really upset about this. This was something that happened to me that I did not like. I I did not enjoy the experience. It affected me in a certain way. I felt different after the experience than I did before. I felt like a part of me was missing. I felt like a part of me was changed. These are all of the issues that we would like to work with using parts therapy or IFS. And these are all of the types of issues that could potentially pull in an entity as well. If the feelings of that trauma were perceived by the part so very deeply, then that can lower the resonance of light in the chakra and that can pull in an entity. And it's very interesting what you mentioned there about things can start, as early as a baby crying in a crib. Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And you would not believe how many entities I've pulled out of the throat of people because they were brought up with that cry it out method and their parents were told it was the right thing to do, leave the baby to cry. And from the baby's perspective, they've been warm and cozy and safe and nurtured, and they've been a part of this big system that wraps all the way around them. And then all of a sudden, they're disconnected. All they want to be is back with their mother because they feel that they're a part of the mother. They don't know why the mother's not there. And so it creates this sadness around the sacral,
Mm.
obviously, a feeling of a lack of safety around the root, probably around the solar plexus as well. Am I safe? Is this situation okay? A feeling of confidence as well around that. But then the throat chakra of the baby crying, and then you'll have clients that will say, "My mother said I was a terrible baby. I had colic. I used to cry constantly. I'd never stop crying, and she just couldn't understand why I would cry constantly. It would never stop." And then when you get that client into session and you connect to the dark energy that's been pulled in to the throat chakra because of the upset of the baby and the need to vocalize, where's my mother? Where's my mother? What's happening? This entity, once it got in because of the distress of the child, then needs to feed. It's a really big energy. It needs to feed. And it's difficult to feed off of the emotional energy of a baby because a baby sleeps a lot.
Mm.
And because it is a baby, doesn't really feel too many emotions to begin with, other than I'm not safe, I'm not happy, and I know that I can vocalize that by crying.
Mm.
So oftentimes one of the first energy centers that will become targeted after the sacral, because the sacral can become targeted when the baby is in the womb, if the mother of the baby has a sacral entity. But if that's not the case, oftentimes the first energy center that people will get something in this world is the throat chakra for
Mm.
that reason.
That's so interesting. Can you tell us what it might appear like when somebody has an entity in the various chakras, what it might be like with a root chakra versus a throat chakra, etc.?
Absolutely. It makes me so happy that you asked me that question.
It's so important,
Um,
right?
it It really is, and I'm so passionate about it. It means everything to me to be able to raise awareness about this stuff so people can start to really understand it and look at the information against their own symptoms or behaviors or emotions and think, hmm, that kind of describes what's going on with me. Okay, so people that have pulled things into the root chakra, they will have had something that occurred at some point in their life that made them feel unsafe or disconnected
Mm.
or fear. And obviously, we know that as humans, there's many, many situations where we feel fear. People that have the entity attach at the root, that entity will normally base its energy in one of the hips. It won't anchor directly at the root unless it's an earthbound spirit. If it's a darker energy, it will place itself in the hips. That person will then complain of sciatica. There'll be an issue with the hip. There might be issues with the knees, and the ankles and the feet, and they will constantly be anxious. They will be in a state of perpetual anxiety and panic if they have a root parasite. People that have a parasite in the sacral chakra will either have had a sacral trauma, have a disconnect from their mother figure in this lifetime, or have been passed down the ancestral trauma of a disconnect from the mother figure from a previous lifetime or ancestrally, or they will have sexual trauma or oppression, a lack of freedom. So people that have experienced that will pull something into the sacral. And once you've got something in the sacral chakra, that affects fertility, it causes all sorts of physical issues with the reproductive system and the gut. It can cause issues in the gut, for the gut not working correctly because there isn't the light going in as it should do. That can lead to food intolerances as well, as the gut becomes overworked, destabilized because it doesn't have the energy that it needs. You can also have people developing issues in the bladder as well, that's related to anger held towards the mother. That's also related to the sacral chakra. Moving up to the solar plexus chakra, this is one of the this is one of the most difficult chakras to help people to bounce back from because it is so impactful to people when they have their confidence squished as children and they're made to feel guilt or shame, or they're controlled through guilt and shame. And because of that, they adopt addictions that's also connected to a lack of solar plexus energy. So all addictions can be directly connected back to a lack of solar plexus energy. And with people that have pulled a parasite in, they could have been dominated by a narcissistic parent, a narcissistic sibling, a narcissistic teacher, a narcissistic friend, a narcissistic gym teacher. You know, we can all think of a situation there, can't we? And it affects your confidence as you're growing up developmentally at a very important time. That leads to addiction, to be able to cope with the feelings of insecurity, low confidence, shame, and guilt. Those addictions then lead to further issues within the energetic body and further feeds back into the shame loop as
Mm.
well.
Mm.
People will have issues with pain and discomfort in the stomach, issues with eating, issues with stomach acid, issues with not cysts. Is it cysts I'm thinking of? Ulcers in the stomach. Um, any of those physical symptoms will be indicative of the fact that we've got something big attached to the solar plexus.
Wow.
Are you happy for me to continue?
Yes, please. This is
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm thinking of all these people I know in my life. Wow, or where it may have even been in my own life, you know? So absolutely, this is beautiful.
In my experience, the heart chakra is the least parasited upon
Mm.
chakra, and there's many reasons for that. These entities know that if they attach at the lower chakras and block at the throat, that the heart won't open. So as much energy can't come through. However, you will sometimes find very particular energies anchored at the heart, whose purpose it is to keep the heart mean
Oh.
So if there's a reason that we want that heart to stay mean, there are certain energies that will anchor there. Earthbound spirits will anchor there as well, particularly loved ones. So if you have a loved one that's died from an addiction or a very traumatic death, or they have a strong possessing feeling over a person or place, they won't leave from the lower astral into the higher realms, and they can become bound to the loved one because the loved one feels grief at the passing of the family member. That lowers the frequency of the heart chakra, the heart space, and then the discarnate spirit, the earthbound spirit, can then be magnetically pulled into that space. So sometimes you will find earthbound spirits in people's heart chakras. The throat chakra, again, is a very heavily parasited upon chakra in the human chakra system. You will find all sorts of energies at the throat chakra. You'll find AI, you'll find discarnate spirits, you'll find negatively polarized beings, reptilian beings, um, any person on this planet that's in a position of control that has the ability to sway people's hearts and minds and opinions through the voice, unless they know how to clear their throat chakra, will have an energy anchored at the throat. The third eye is a very interesting energy center because those who are versed in the occult practices and are, let's say, aligned with the darker side of this planet, they will have a very large energy anchored at the third eye chakra that's not nice in any way and probably at the top of the tree in terms of the dark energies that control. Whereas humans that are kind of shut down and they drink a lot of fluoride and their third eye is closed and there's lots of metals around the third eye and the third eye is atrophied, then there will be a dark parasite there that takes the energy that comes through so that that third eye can never open.
Mm.
So that's also something to note as well with these people that have kind of connected very strongly with AI. The third eye will be where that AI is mostly focused. It can go into the throat, it can go down to the heart in order to close the heart chakra down because the heart and the third eye are both portals of higher consciousness out of this realm. So the AI will try and shut down the heart chakra and the third eye in the crown. And then moving up to the crown chakra, you will find AI around the crown, and you will find various demonic energies that can be connected to religious dogma and control around the crown as well. And you'll find energies up in the soul star. You can't see what I'm doing because of the screen, but the soul star chakra, which is around here, you'll find energies in that, and also the earth star, which is about a foot below the surface of the planet. So when I do clearings with people, not only do I clean and clear these energy centers, but I clean the earth star, which is around here. I clean the soul star, which is around here. I clean the palms, eyes, ears, also hips, knees, and feet. So it's a complete clean and clear of all of the energy centers. And we also do a final sweep of the entirety of the fields because discarnate spirits, so earthbound spirits, and AI and implants, which are sometimes placed, they don't have to be connected to a chakra. So that's an important distinction to note. If it's a dark parasitical energy that feeds upon light, so one of the more sinister, menacing, evil, and that's a perception I know, but more of the more evil ones have to connect to a chakra because it's their food source.
Mm.
But an earthbound spirit can reside attached in someone's finger if that's where they feel it's the most safest to be. So we always clean and clear the entirety of the person's fields after we've done the individual clearings of the chakras to make sure that nothing's hiding.
I've sometimes heard that if a ancestor is passed on because they could not maybe accept their death, so they will hold on to the brightest light in the family or hold on, it can start affecting the health and well-being of that person and even lead to their
Yeah.
demise eventually. Or if somebody, we all know someone who, when they start to drink, completely changes personality. Well, what's that? I've heard that that can be an entity as well. Or somebody,
Correct. So
they drive you crazy because when you visit them, you know they're a nice person, but they don't stop talking. And it's almost just exhausting to be around them because there's no
Yeah,
place for silence or peace. Are these all entity related, possibly?
absolutely. And, you know, if we were to drill it down, we could always find an emotion that was created in
Mm,
a part of that person that made them feel the need to do what it is that they're doing.
mm,
But if I address all of those points, so the person whose ancestor doesn't feel like they can pass or doesn't feel like they'll be accepted in the light and they attach to the brightest light in the family, which is completely true. I've had so many instances where I've removed energies from my clients that had been affecting the health and well-being of that client. I'll just give you an example now as I think of it. A lady who came to me that said, I don't understand why this is happening. I've started taking drugs and this is not something that I want to do. It's not something that I've ever wanted to do. I lost my mother to heroin addiction when I was a child, and
mm,
she left me. And I should know better than this. I should know better than to be taking these drugs. And when I actually relaxed her down into hypnotherapy and we connected into her fields and she connected in, the earthbound spirit of the deceased mother that had taken the drugs overdose was attached to her fields.
mm,
Because when she overdosed, she didn't want to leave her daughter, who was a baby.
mm,
And she was also bound to the earth through addiction as well.
mm,
So we've got to attend to our addictions while we're here. And it was the overlay, if you like, of the earthbound spirit of the mother's need for heroin, her perpetual need for drugs, because earthbound spirits are kind of freeze framed in the state that they are in at the time when they pass, never changes. And so that overlay of having her mother attached that constantly needed heroin eventually led her to start taking drugs. And
mm.
I do believe that's an example that literally saved that lady's life, because if we hadn't have removed the earthbound spirit there, then she would have died. Another example that I can think of is a gentleman that came to see me that couldn't understand why, since his father had passed, he'd got all of the symptoms that his father had been exhibiting in the lead up to his passing. And again, when I regressed him down and we connected to his fields, we started to talk to what was there. And there were three earthbound spirits of his ancestral line that were all attached. And the reason he started to feel his father's symptoms is because when his father had come out of his body, he'd seen that his mother was still there and his grandmother.
Ah,
And so he thought, well, I can't leave and go into the light if my mum and my grandmother are still here. And when we spoke to all of the spirits, the reason was the grandmother felt she would not be welcome in the house of God, in the home of God, in the light of source, in the light of God, because of the things that she had done in her life.
wow.
And so we had to help the grandmother to understand that she's loved beyond all measure and nothing that she could possibly do or have done or ever would do would stop her from being welcomed back into the light. It was only when that healing work had been done that the three ancestors could move in to the light. And then my client started to feel the resurgence of his energy and his body returned to him. And again, exactly what you say about addiction. People's energy will change when they drink, for example, because they have an entity attached. And when they drink, at a certain point, their human consciousness kind of checks out and it becomes too intoxicated to stay present. And when the human consciousness checks out, that's when the attached entity takes over. And I've had so many clients over the years whose spouses have signed them up for a healing session with me because they've said to me, he is not or she is not themselves when they drink. And they've tried to kill me. They've
Wow.
tried to kill me many times whilst they've been drunk. And the next day they have no memory of
Wow.
why this would occur. So it's a very, very prevalent issue and it's an important issue. And it all comes back to these darker energies that have got in through trauma, that attach to the chakra system, that are connected to us emotionally and mentally, that when we become intoxicated, our human consciousness checks out and the attached entity takes over and has a field day with the physical vehicle. And I'll get lots of clients that will come to me with sleepwalking disorders, and they'll say, I don't understand why I do these things at night time. My husband will report he finds me sitting at the kitchen table, like I'll pull out a chair and I'll sit at the kitchen table, or he'll find me in the closet, sat in the closet. I don't know why I do that. The reason for that is because in the closets are places in every home where there is the biggest potentiality for a dark portal to open because they're dank, they're fusty, they're rarely opened when they are. They don't get a lot of light, then they're closed again. And so closets are a place. And if you think about the movie Monsters Inc., that's where the monsters come out of the closet, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's where we often think when we're kids, oh, something's going to be in the closet. And I remember once when my grandmother was starting to lose her mind towards the end of her life, we all of a sudden heard this, help me, help me. And she was actually stuck in the closet and banging and trying to get out, how she got in there and closed herself in. And she thought she was in a coffin, and had been put away
Yeah,
and was just
yeah,
terrified. Um, so there's so many things. It's interesting. I think this is so important that people learn about this at this time because we see our world going in a direction that could mean death for all of us if we don't turn this around. And you wonder, what is propelling this? Well, this is what I believe is propelling us. The AI, the entities, it's all just taking us, trying to take us away from source. We have to have some kind of God in our lives. And if it's not going to be the highest expression of ourselves and source energy and the beauty of nature and all of that, which is my personal, it's going to be materialism or it's going to be AI and transhumanism and a virtual reality.
yeah,
So it's trying to pull us towards that. It's like the most traumatized people in our world are dragging us towards an abyss right now. And there's bright spirits going, whoa, not that way, this way,
yeah.
into the heart, into the healing.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you anymore.
Mm,
Everything that you've just said is correct.
mm,
And it's really important that people like you and people like you and I, talk about these topics and shine light on them in a way that people can watch back and understand and contemplate, because it may just be the thing that stops that person from heading off into the abyss. So I
mm.
feel very grateful to have
Thank
this conversation with you today. And
you. Thank
it's
you.
been a genuine pleasure to meet you
Sure has.
today.
It sure has. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, how are things going in England? I've heard it's quite progressive with kind of a, people, freedom of speech being squelched, and they're bringing in new bills and laws in Canada. They're pushing through right now to completely lose freedom of speech and all these laws to put doctors in jail and anybody in jail that speaks out. And I know England has been the first, the UK has been the first place to kind of move forward. How is that going? Is there a strong movement to stop this?
It does feel like there's a definite movement of people that are not on board with what it is they're trying to do. And, there's this, the current Prime Minister wants England to adopt this digital identity. And there were millions of us that signed a petition that said, no, we absolutely do not want it. And as it stands, that should have meant that it was argued in Parliament, and it should have meant that the wishes of the people were heard and that nothing would proceed beyond that. Um, and in regards to that, I'm not sure where that's at yet. The last that I heard, the government were just ignoring what the people were saying and they were proceeding with it anyway. And it does feel like they're trying to incite a lot of unrest within the country itself currently.
Mm.
You've got that jar, haven't you, with the red ants and the black ants, and everyone's fine. Everyone's going about their business, having a great day. And then somebody shakes the jar, and then the red ants perceive that it's the black ants perceive that it's the red ants, and then they both attack each other and kill everybody.
Mm.
That's what I feel is being attempted to happen in our country at the moment. They want to annoy everybody, upset everybody enough that something starts, and then they will usher in the control to keep people safe.
Exactly.
That's where I see it
And,
going.
and and this is what they have done traditionally. They create a problem. They divide the populace. They say it's that one, it's this one. We recently had an issue. This is just a small issue, but just here in British Columbia in the last week, there were 500 ostriches killed at a local farm, and people had been praying for trying to support these ostriches, and the government was saying no, we're going to kill them, they're a threat, a threat. And they were resistant to the bird flu and the avian flu and all these things, so they seem to have an incredible stamina and strength to offer us. But now the media is saying that the far right conspiracy fringe that was making a fuss around the ostriches has lost. But the way that they've worded this article makes it sound like anybody who is involved with that is crazy, is far right, is a fringe, and they called us anti-vaxxers, all in the headline, anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists. And before people even read the article, they're already disliking the people that stood up, just had big hearts for these ostriches. But it's the same with everything. People stand up. You studied science, I've studied science. Some of us stood up when those things in the arm were going through and saying, look, we need control groups. They went and even gave the thing in the arm to the control group. We need more information. We need to bring other voices to the table. All sorts of other voices were coming to the table saying this is dangerous. And they just dismissed it. And instead, they used a ton of disinformation or propaganda to make everybody hate the people so that we got uninvited to Christmas and Thanksgiving and all the
Mm,
rest of it. It was so sad. And now they're starting to do it again. And more than likely, they will create another problem that will mean they will blame the group that doesn't go along with the digital identity. And this is
yeah.
such an important thing because as long as they have a digital currency system, and it doesn't have to be central bank digital currencies. This could even run with credit cards. They just want to control it all. So they've got people with their phones, that's a part of it. They've got digital ID, that's a big part of it. They've got a control grid, which is all the surveillance and everything around. If people go forward with this, it could mean a complete control. And if you don't, just like the World Economic Forum wrote up in their website years ago in 2020, that was going to cut you off from utilities, from passports, from travel, from healthcare, from pension, from cell phones, from imagine no utilities in Canada in the winter.
Yeah.
Hello, like it means death for people that don't. The only way that we can fight against this is to say no before it moves that far. In Canada, they're very sneaky. They brought it in. All the university students now have it. I went back to school. I was, and then they brought in the digital ID and I quit. And that was after like 8 years of going back part-time. I just went, I am not. And I could see just a total degeneration of the universities from when I used to study in the 90s, the early 90s. Everything was changed. In psychology, for example, when I was studying back then, a lot of things were based on trauma. Now it's all based on chemistry, on biology, chemistry, biochemistry, so they can prescribe drugs. They,
Yeah.
there's no more repression. It's all false memories. So don't try to sue your father when the memories come up in 15, 20 years. So they're changing all these things that it's very concerning. They all these things, a lot of it starts in the universities too. And this is an important message for our kids because if you look at what happened even in the Great Leap Forward with Mao's China, the foundation of that was with the kids in school and university that they taught this is the new way, and they were all against culture and their ancestors and their elders and things of tradition and religion, and basically the kids just brought this whole thing through. So we can't stop talking. We have to keep our speech going.
I
And
agree.
yeah, it's such a crucial time on the planet to fight, to stand for freedom, to keep our throat chakras free. Don't shut them down. Yay!
Breathe the throat chakra.
Well, what a wonderful chat. Laura, will you please tell us how we can reach you and about the wonderful courses you teach so people can get hold of you?
Of course. So I have two websites. You can look at the training packages that I offer on www.schhhofficial.com. And I think I sent that information that can be placed in the text underneath the text under the video. I've also got www.laurawhitworth.com. And on either of those websites, you can book sessions with me personally if you'd like to see me personally for therapy or entity release or any of the things that have been spoken about on this interview. But just to say, I do teach people all over the world how to do what it is that I do in regards to entity release. So if anybody is interested in learning more about this stuff, and you don't have to learn it to be a practitioner of it on other clients. You can just learn it for your own interest to clean and clear your own energetic body and fields so that you know that you're moving forwards clean and clear.
Absolutely. And not to mention family members and people. We will be meeting so many people going forward that are suffering as all this stuff starts to flush out. There is another thing that I would love to ask you, and that's, have you found as a practitioner, as a healing practitioner, that this AI may get into your computer or may make you like actually get into you, sort of attack you? Because there's just been, a history of people that stand up and then all of a sudden there's, the yeah, they feel they're being poisoned. Or I did an interview last week with Dr. Charles Hoff, who was a prominent Canadian physician, the first physician that started doing D-dimer tests before and after his clients took jabs, and he got all this information. And of course, the College of Physicians and Surgeons just shut him down. And next thing you know, there was a massive fire where he lived. That was something that looked very suspicious because there would be a melted car and a plastic garbage can just fine right beside it, and a bunch of stuff taken down, and then a perfect house, and sort of like the Lahaina incident. And so ever since I did that interview, I haven't, I usually I'm on X, Rumble, BitChute, and YouTube. Nothing will bring it up. It's crazy, So the censoring, I just had to ask you, have you found this? Have you found your volume goes off or your screens freeze or
Yeah, I mean, my own personal tech seems to be pretty good and solid, but I do notice that there are issues with people's technology where AI has got into the tech. Um, or with people that have got AI in their fields that can somehow interface with the technology as well. And as you said earlier, AI will get in, it will get in through that.
Mhm.
It'll get in through the air, through the water, through the food. And whilst we can make really, really healthy and sensible choices in regards to what we eat and drink, there's going to be some that gets in there as well. And this was happening a long time before we kind of realized it was happening. So one thing that I would mention on the back of that is for people to really seriously consider doing a parasite cleanse and a heavy metals cleanse physically, as well as getting an energetic clean and clear, because those things together is going to make sure that your physical body is free of AI and your energetic body is free of AI.
Absolutely. And just ongoing, a real dedication to health, to a healthy lifestyle. I hardly ever drink. I made the mistake of having a glass of wine the other night. Within 2, 3 hours, I had a big headache and I had some pizza. I normally don't eat stuff, or and hardly ever drink. And it was just like I'm not even going to try anymore. I hardly ever do, but it's amazing. The cleaner our bodies get, the stronger the signals we get. Whoa, that's not for me. So
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, Laura, this
that's
is
so true.
wonderful. I am so grateful. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up for today?
I suppose my final comment would be that hopefully there are people that has listened to this that has thought to themselves, those symptoms that she mentioned there or those traumas, that definitely is something that I can resonate with. And I do think I'm going to reach out and get my energy cleared. And that would really mean the absolute world to me, because what I do want to do is raise awareness and to help as many people, as many humans as possible, hop off of the AI timeline onto the organic human timeline that is connected to source, that's connected to the light, that's organic and connected with the heart energy. And so I feel that that is my mission on this planet at this time, to raise awareness for that.
Beautiful, beautiful. I might just throw in as well. I think we both see that there's a lot more light building on the planet, and there's also a lot more AI building, a lot more darkness.
Mm.
And there could be a cut or a break. And this is if people want to be a part of the light, this is time to stop distracting and start going within and really looking at one's life, I would say. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Just that I agree with it in every sense of the word. And, there are light workers that I've come across that will argue with me that interfacing with AI and telling AI everything can only be a good thing, and it's going to help us in our work and we can't move forwards without this AI. And I think those people are going to have to pick a lane at
Mm,
some point. We've all got to pick a lane. And one's going to be AI technology, transhumanism, smart cities, everything under control. You can't do anything regimented. And the other one is going back to the old ways, connecting into what we always used to know, living in harmony with Mother Earth, with nature,
mm,
living in harmony with each other. And that is what I am here for. I am absolutely here for that timeline.
mm.
Um, whilst I don't have any judgment whatsoever about people that are on the other timeline, because I know that's their chosen experience, I'm here to help people move into the organic timeline.
Mm. Absolutely. And I do find as well that as we do more of this healing work, we're naturally more drawn to nature. We're naturally just dying to get out there and get in nature, hug a tree, sit by a river, grow food, put our hands. I get such joy from growing food now, from all the herbs
Yeah.
in my garden and all the wild things and the little birds I feed. And it's just a return to simplicity, a return to peace. And it's such a beautiful thing, such a far cry from the life I was living at one point when I felt more lost and had my first spiritual experience. So, oh, Laura Whitworth, you are so wonderful.
Oh, so are you. It's been an absolute genuine pleasure to connect with you today. And
Oh,
just knowing that you exist makes me feel better